A great question. The Revenge Porn Helpline, gosh, actually, in February, marked its 10th anniversary. We set it up back in 2015. It was the world's first helpline that supports adults experiencing non-consensual intimate image abuse. And so, yep, today we still have the Revenge Porn Helpline. I should add as well, it's clearly one of the three helplines that we at SWGfL operate, directly and indirectly supporting those experiencing harm online. But certainly the Revenge Porn Helpline has been the centre of attention more recently, and it also has been, in terms of trends, we've experienced a huge growth in demand for support. So just to qualify that, back in 2019, the helpline managed 1,600 cases. By 2022, largely fueled by COVID, that rose to 3,200 cases. By 2021, that rose to 4,400 cases, then to 8,900 cases in 22. And by 2023, we supported just over 19,000 cases. So we've seen, in that period, we've seen over a tenfold increase. And so whilst we haven't yet published the 2024 data, we've seen again a dramatic and a marked rise over 2023. So it has been incredibly difficult to maintain the support. And for what the Revenge Porn Helpline does is it provides practical content takedown. So we do invariably support people, victims, who are experiencing this particular issue, and our role is one of identifying content, reporting content, and having content taken down. So whilst we are just a charity, 90% of the content that the helpline removes or that reports is indeed removed, which is a fantastic figure, and one that we know that those victims we support value. Conversely, well, the flip side of that is that 10% of the content that we report still remains online. So whilst we remain optimistic with the introduction of the Online Safety Act and other regulations across the world, that figure may well reduce, we fear it will never reduce to anywhere like 0%, given the experience and the struggling that we have and other regulators across the world have who do report this. It is a hugely gendered issue. So gender is a defining aspect about the sorts of situations that people find themselves in. So where we support, if you like, where there's a female, in terms of familial non-consensual intimate image abuse, there is usually a female victim and a male perpetrator. Conversely, and more recently, we've been supporting sextortion cases, and that's predominantly men. 93% of the cases of sextortion that we supported in 2023 had a male victim. So gender is a defining factor in this case too. And I'd also like just to mention, I mentioned victims. We're often criticised for using the term victims, and we stand by this. We were encouraged to use the term survivor, but we claim that we don't support survivors. We support victims, and our job is to make them a survivor. Now, clearly, people are entitled to have whatever title that they wish themselves, but in that context, like I say, we deal with victims, and our job is to make them a survivor. But I'll add, given the impact of this particular harm, we are not always successful. The catastrophe that befalls people and the pressure that these situations bring about them can be all-consuming and can result in some significant tragedy. So I cannot underestimate that impact enough, based on the instances and the support that we provide. We continue to provide, and have done now for 10 years. So one of the things, the revolutionary step changes was the development and the introduction of our stopncii.org in December 2021. Based on some of the cases that the helpline has supported, the threat to share content can be as distressing and as catastrophic as actually having content shared online. That loss of control. There's nothing you can do about it. It leads to again terrible pressure on a number of particular victims. And so StopNCI.org specifically and directly responds to that. It's a website that say we developed over a 2-year period in partnership with Meta. And released it in December 2021. It is the world's first device-side hashing technology. So what we are doing here, and what the website and the technology uses, is it uses well-trodden hashing technology that's been used for many years to combat child sex abuse material, to terrorist content, all sorts of different illegal harms. But we're applying it to NCII. The revolutionary bit here is that these are essentially user-generated hashes. So if somebody is threatening to post your intimate images online, you as an individual visit the website, stopnci.org, and I should add as well, this is a global, available globally to adults anywhere across the world, anyone over the age of 18. You visit the website and you yourself, on your device, you create a hash. So you do not share your image or your video, it always remains on your device. But it's the hash code, the digital fingerprint that uniquely identifies that image or video that's then shared and added onto the StopNCI data bank, hash bank, and then we immediately share that onto participating platforms to enable them to prevent anybody else anywhere in the world from posting that particular image or that particular video on their website. So hugely powerful technology, and it's the privacy preserving. There is no logging into StopNCI. There is no data that we collect. So we want to give individuals, victims, ultimate confidence and trust in the platform. We are not collecting any data. You do not share your image or your video. It always remains on your device. And so you can withdraw. You can go back into StopNCI, and you can withdraw the hash should you wish to. And so those hashes act as a signal to our amazing currently 14 partners that they then use that hash, say, to prevent anybody else anywhere in the world from posting that particular image or video on their platform. So we very much applaud those 14 platforms. So Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Reddit, OnlyFans, ALO, Microsoft Bing, Snap, to name just a few. We have a big push at the moment, and whilst it's great that we've got 14, there should be hundreds or thousands of platforms taking these hashes. The more platforms taking these hashes, the more protection and the more distress we can discharge from victims experiencing this particular harm. Whilst I'm here, I want to give a shout out to the NGOs across the world as well. So StopNCI, we work with 106 NGOs across the world. It's really important for us is that when somebody arrives at stopnci.org, whichever country they are from, that they're able to affect some support in their own country, in their own culture, and perhaps in their own language. So whilst StopNCI is available in 22 languages today, more to come. That all-important local support is vital, and so you can access and we direct people, victims, users to support that's available in their own country, and indeed vice versa as well. It stands as a network of NGOs right across the world who can signpost people who they're supporting to that all-important and immediate help and support. So I think predominantly in this case, in terms of trust and safety, I'd encourage anybody to step forward and to inquire, to reach out, and to become a partner of StopNCI, and to utilise the very powerful hash sets that it represents. So, a great question, and we as a charity are entirely victim centered in all of this, and so this tool, so stopnci.org as an example, is an amazingly powerful application of technology to counter what is a terrible harm online. But there's a variety. This is not just tech. It's a great advance for the tech industry to be able to utilize the stop NCI hashes. But this is done by a collective. I've already mentioned the great work of these 106 NGOs who are supporting individuals across the world, and there are in many countries a paucity of support, particularly for adults, and particularly where there's violence against women and girls, so gender-based violence. There is often little support that's available to them. For example, some of the 106 NGOs, their support for adults has come about by necessity. In actual fact, it's just it's an addition that they offer that support on top of providing other forms of support. So, for example, in Pakistan, the Digital Rights Foundation provides support to women in all sorts of different aspects, and so NCII support is just one of those. So. If there is much more that NGOs could do to perhaps to specialise. There's a network of 106 NGOs. It is a fantastic network to build capacity, to build scale, to build response. I think if we look at policymakers, we're seeing the emergence of lots of regulations, lots of laws around the world over recent years. Personally speaking, I've worked in the space of protecting or online safety now for well over 20 years, and the parallels with violence against women and girls online, or gender-based violence online, is very much where violence or harms against children were 15, 20 years ago. And so hence we see the emergence of some of these sort of regulations. From a UK perspective, clearly the Online Safety Act introduced non-consensual intimate image abuse as a priority offence. We've seen other countries, we've seen the European Union introduce regulations and directives around gender and equalities, particularly to do with NCII. In the States, we see the SHIELD Act, the Take It Down Act being proposed and being taken through the various houses as legislation. In August last year, the UN Cybercrime Convention, when it published its new draft, introduced a specific article on non-consensual intimate image use, and it was fantastic to see that being adopted on Christmas Eve last year. And so, again, recognition of this rising tide of regulation in this space, so where countries should be having laws and effective laws around the prevention of NCII is fantastic to see. Stepping up of tech to do more. Stop NCII is the easy and the obvious thing that we would encourage all platforms to do. Having support available to victims and indeed survivors across the world is an important aspect. So there are lots of things that can be and should be being done. And so anybody and everybody listening to this will have a part to play, irrespective of whichever sector that they're from. So having, again, worked in this space for many years, I think the emergence of trust and safety summits, trust and safety, the community, if you like, I love to see the innovation, the ideas, clearly from a non-consensual intimate image abuse perspective, and that affects gender-based violence. It is one that I'm really looking forward to see and to be involved with the conversations. It's when you kind of get these the meetings of various different communities, different sectors. That's where you get say some creativity, some innovation, and some ideas about how else we might be able to tackle these sorts of this sort of abuse and this sort of harm online. How else can we learn and adopt strategies from slightly different sectors? StopNCI.org is a fantastic example of that, with technologies that we're just merely acquiring and manipulating for use to prevent NCII. Clearly, as we look forward, generative AI technologies will also play, and we are finding playing a significant part in harming individuals, or being used to harm individuals. And so, how we can use technologies, how we can use policies, and indeed education about preventing harm, particularly to do with synthetic content, the synthetic, non-consensual intimate image abuse is a really important aspect. And clearly, whether that's policy, regulation, or the adoption of technologies to help prevent it, is all really encouraging. I have no doubt will be discussed, much discussed at the Trust and Safety Summit.